Then I would like to ask a question in the meantime. So how was the public reaction on the terror attack in Copenhagen?
Well, it was quite astonishing at the same time, maybe not so surprisingly, that we've had two prime ministers. One representing the Social Democrats, Mrs. Helle Schmidt, and later on Libertarian Prime Minister, who managed in very important speeches, Mrs. Thorning-Schmidt, just after the terror attack, and the other one on New Year's Eve, you know, where prime ministers make a speech, not to mention the attack on Cologne, and not to mention Lars Vilks. Like Lars Vilks has in many cases become a kind of Voldemort, you know, the figure from Harry Potter. Do not mention his name, trouble will come. Also it's my experience that support has come from, you know, people you would never have expected it from, both in public and in private. But to put it blunt, had the French ambassador in Denmark, François Merete, who was so brave to say, of course I will come to your debate, had he not been there at the meeting, providing it with some kind of respectability, I'm afraid we would have been chased out of town.
And has the perception changed over time? After now, I mean, we had these big attacks in Europe, like the Bataclan, Charlie Hebdo. Has there been any change of mood that you can see?
I think there's a strange tendency to distinguish between what people consider innocent targets of terrorism and people who are a little less innocent. The innocent ones are people, for instance, at the Jewish bar mitzvah. It is people at Bataclan, it's people in an airport. But then again, there's Charlie Hebdo, and there are people going to a debate for freedom of speech. I had some very good friends among the audience, and several of them met the reactions from colleagues and employees. But what did you think going to that kind of meeting?
They were asking for it.
Yeah, this is exactly what the interview, one of the writers at Charlie Hebdo said yesterday in the interview. He said you were looking for it. Yeah, if this is the main reaction. Yes.
Now, as you're coming from a Scandinavian country, I'm coming back to the discussion we had in the beginning. What is your answer about Sweden, and where do you feel the criticism in the Scandinavian countries, who opened apparently the borders much earlier than Germany did, and we are also, you know, like Henrik Broder said, we are trying to explain it with our history. But what is the answer from the Scandinavian countries on that?
I think that one could say about the debate in Scandinavia that Denmark certainly has the country where you can most openly discuss problems, challenges with immigration. Then comes Norway, and then, as you rightly put it, Sweden. I think Sweden, or Swedes in general, consider them to be kind of citizens of the world, playing an important role, staying neutral in wars. They do not have the guilt complexes like Henrik Broder and others talk so much about. And think that this is what Swedes tend to see them as international people. Then they look upon all these narrow-minded people who are afraid of people from foreign countries, where the truth is that many of us, being sort of wanting immigration, the limit of immigration to be tough, have of course many friends, acquaintances from Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, all over the world. They see themselves as citizens of the world. I think it was one of was it Anna who said something about this, no borders should be necessary, this kind of attitude. But it is changing in Sweden also.
And the reaction to your exhibitions, we saw Douglas Murray in the video, and Baroness Cox, and they're both very open-minded and very strong supporters of the freedom of speech. But what is the public reaction to your exhibitions? Is there media coverage in the UK?
So the answer will be quite long actually, because we have a long history now. So I have to say that at the beginning, I don't think people have awareness. So I felt that the role of the festival at the beginning is actually to inform people. When I joined the festival in 2010, first I went to a demonstration in front of Downing Street that was against Sharia courts that operate in Britain. There are no proper statistics because a lot of them actually operate in secret. So the official number that was done in a research a few years ago is, states 85. But actually they don't know, they don't have a clue. So the protest was there was a small group of people, a lot of people from the public, most of them, they didn't have even an idea that it's happening in Britain, and actually it's legal, that the courts were brought in under the disguise that they are mediation courts. So it's a bit like you go for a piece of advice, where actually, and also people try to also minimize the issue by saying, oh, but it's just the civil law. It's not the penal code where we cut your hand off or we stone you to death, or it's just the civil law where it's about the divorce, about the child custody. So it's not so serious that the woman means less, and so on and so forth. So what shocked me then was that there was no report in the media about the protest, there was no report about the whole issue, that there is actually some debate, that there are activists, there are people trying to do something about it. And then myself at that time, an artist, and thinking that I'm an informed citizen, I thought, wow, I didn't know, I didn't realize. What else is there that I don't know? And I started to read more, and then I decided to join the festival. Camila, who co-founded the festival, she invited me to start working as a curator because I have an experience as an artist. So at the beginning it felt we're just trying to inform people, just highlight issues, among other issues related to freedom, because our festival treats about freedom widely. So we ask artists 3 questions: what is freedom? How easy is it to lose it? How hard is it to get it back? So there would be also issues coming about other subjects. But this theme is, every year we get the artworks and the issues gets deeper and deeper and more serious. Now, since the attacks intensified in Europe, and also after being myself in the terror attack in Copenhagen, I have to say that I have a split perception. Part of me, looking from the personal side, I got really angry. After Paris attack, the PTSD hit me because I connected really strongly with people from Bataclan, because it was a similar situation that you are in a closed space.
PTSD being the aftermath.
Yes, yes, the
body
reaction that you get, like psychologically and with your body in response to what happened to you. So then I realized that it really hit me because I was identifying myself with them, and I felt that I have to try to be with them until they get freed, and whoever survives, I can't just leave them there on their own. That in a sense, I have a connection with them beyond the time and space and so on. So then when I was reading comments and articles in the newspapers, I have to say that I had to really stop myself, because there was part of me that was really angry, thinking, how can't you see what's going on? How many more people have to die? How many more people have to suffer so much? But part of me thought that I have to try to understand where the people are coming from, what kind of bubbles they live in, because they live in a bubble. What I found quite problematic is that the response of the Western governments, because we have to remind ourselves that this is not an issue in Poland, this is not an issue in Czech Republic, this is not an issue in Hungary, this is a problem of Western Europe. So that the response of the government is actually to create police states. And what also bothers me, and we talked with Helle about it quite a lot, and also when I was giving the interview to the Channel 4, I stated that we put a lot of blame on police. We point fingers, or like they were not protecting the Krutten enough, or why they didn't stop this terror attack in Berlin recently, or they were not doing their job. Well, but who makes the law to protect the citizens of the country? Politicians. Who chooses them? We do. So maybe we should point the fingers at ourselves. What are we doing ourselves? And it's interesting that after the terror attack in Berlin, there were a lot of comments in the media, and I watched it from the side of Britain, from London, because I live in London. So there was a lot said about the police, how they failed. But then later on, I only found one article that was saying that, well, they didn't have the tools within the law to arrest him. They didn't have enough to charge him. But that article was just one somewhere. But the first wave was just criticism of the police, but no one really going closer to Merkel and questioning her approach and what she's really doing. So I think that's important part. And for me, it was quite amusing when a lot of people spend a lot of time in Europe criticizing Polish government and the lack of freedom in Poland, where I would see the photos of the New Year's Eve from Poland and girls and boys having fun together in an open square, big concerts, and you see Belgium, you see France. Well, you're actually like living in a military barracks. I have to say that after Copenhagen, I really fancy policemen and military men. So, you know, but still, it's not normal. And what they also do, not only they put more police and military, which I'm thankful that they are there, but it's a distorted version of reality where people forget about the fact that they have a state of emergency in France for so long. They think they live in a normal society and they focus on other issues. So we're not dealing with the core of the problem. We're not dealing with why we have to go through that. We're dealing on this, oh, let's put the concrete blocks around the Christmas market. Or, you know, it's like trying to do like some kind of a little airbrushing of the reality instead of really dealing with the source.
Hello. This is an event about women, so I apologize for this question because it's about men. How did European men go from storming the beaches in Normandy to being unable to call out rape gangs and robbery? How did they fall so far? What caused this? Well, I wasn't in Normandy for the war. What do you think has caused this?
Maybe a man can. Maybe a man can give an answer of this.
Now, with a little help.
Yes, the female perspective, we like that. Yes, I don't have a complete answer for that, but I mean, it's interesting how this looking upon men who do military service and joining the police force is being seen as something admirable. To see a soldier or a policeman as a kind of protector, to see them as something a little, I don't know. It's been quite remarkable in Denmark, at least, to when we follow the discussion of Denmark's engagement in Afghanistan and other countries, whatever your perspective is on that, to see how there's been so little understanding for the men actually putting their lives on risk for a mission that they believe in. Quite recently in Denmark, because we need much more policemen than we have at the moment, they have started up a new education, a short one, and not very many young men and women, but of course it's mostly men, have signed up for this education. And that's a little sad. So it's not a complete answer. Maybe there's a man among us who has one.
I want to answer it. Yeah, I have some suspicions. One part, I have an impression that the reality is distorted. So we have a lot in education and in the media about how white men are predators. There is a lot about the sexual assaults at workplace, or someone noted like, nice knees, and you know they can go to jail for that, or maybe be suspended at work or get disciplinary. But where the actual rape happens, where the actual things happen, maybe we just turn the other way. So that's one thing that I find it quite problematic. Then I think the part of debate with the feminists, so-called feminists, where after the attacks in Germany and Sweden, all over the place, not just one place, they were saying that they don't want the men to come out and protect them. They can protect themselves. I wish them luck. Maybe they should go to to, Tahrir Square, in the middle of the night and show their tits and see what happens.
I want to say the whole refugee crisis was caused by women and by a feminization of society. That it's a female virtue to try to help and to feel sorry for the people of the world. I have to partly blame women, being a woman myself. The refugee crisis was caused by so-called feminine traits, partly. We have to have empathy, whereas men would be more protect themselves in the country. Feminism is kind of stuck. I'm not sure what to. Of course, we don't want to go back to the old ways.
I don't agree with you.
But you're from Poland. In your country, you still have a more old-fashioned
I live in
society.
London since 2002.
In where?
In London since 2002. I don't think it's so much about the place where you live. It's about your values.
Yeah, but the 68ers, the political correctness has gone to an extreme where, for example, in Germany, when boys play with weapons, we say, "Oh, you can't. It's bad."
That's part of your national guilt.
No, it's not just. It's Scandinavia as well, I think. We have this extreme pacifism, of course, a specific German problem as well. But you can see the same in Sweden as well. We are the good people, we are the peaceful ones.
Maybe it's. I would still go back to the history of your country, because in Poland you might think that you are a pacifist, but still you are aware of Russians and of Germans. So you have no illusions that when the time comes, you have to get a gun and protect your family. So look at the history of your country and where you have the traumas and things back at the back of your head that you think this is something else talking, but actually it's that trauma in your society.
Why does Sweden have the same problem then?
They were not so clean.
Would you like to answer, Helle, because
And
you wrote a lot
Scandinavia.
about feminism as well?
I think that maybe I can see
France,
among
they really had little resistance during the Nazi time. They were the first one to take the Jews to the stadium in Paris and send the old people and the children to the concentration camp.
I think there's a general tendency among women, and I have wonderful friends, families who are very concerned about the refugee crisis and all this and want to help. And I think that's a fine and noble quality. Of course, you should help. The question is, how do you help? And I think it's, and it goes for men and well, it's a tendency that is a little dangerous. It is when you show compassion, but you do not connect your compassion with wisdom. Because you can see that in the long run, you are doing something that might be dangerous for the freedom of everyone living here. It goes for every woman, whether we have a non-Muslim or a Muslim background. I think it's mainly compassion without wisdom linked to it.
Also, not to mention, when we just allow everyone and anyone in, we are failing the people that really need help, and they're running away from these countries. Throughout the history of the festival, we had many artists that they would give interview, but they would say, "Don't show our face." Or when we were taking photographs during the festival, they would say, "Please don't publish on Facebook, on the website, the photos where me or my family is, because we are in hiding, because I'm doing this work because it's important. I want to show this work, but I have to protect my family." And we were honoring that request. Then in June last year, a friend that lives in Israel contacted me that she's got a friend with his wife in northern Cyprus, and he was kidnapped, beaten, held for a whole day for 24 hours and told, "You have to divorce your wife and leave her, because otherwise we kill you and we kill her." And they were trying to escape, and they were trying to get refugee status, the asylum in Europe. And still they don't have it. And they were followed to the south because we managed to help them through different contacts. Whoever had any contacts was trying to find help and get the proper help, so they would be smuggled out from northern Cyprus to the other Cyprus that is within the European Union. And we managed, but still there was a cousin of a cousin that came and started to threaten them again, and they had to move again and again because they act like mafia. They're going to find you, they're going to kill you.
Yeah, that applies to the women as well, who have to run away and go into hiding, and they have to hide for most of their lives.
Just maybe try for an answer. The gentleman over there who asked why do men don't fight anymore? Well, I think, okay, one reason certainly you have very small families, usually one child, maybe two childs. So you don't have like big families, you don't fight with your brothers anymore because you don't have any. And fighting with others is just wrongly perceived in a as general values. Same as going to the military. If you look, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we had conscription in Germany. Still, numbers were low, and soldiers are murderous. This famous Tucholsky saying, I think it's Tucholsky, was very, very popular. So you have all these guys basically who don't know to fight anymore. We're just not used to that. And if you go, I'm quite often in Arab countries, there you usually have like large families. You have, I wouldn't call it like gang culture, but youth group culture, who of course beat themselves and have different values. So they grow up in a very rougher environment where violence is a lot more natural. Meanwhile, here in Europe, in Germany, you have the TÜV, the Technical Control Agency, controlling all the playgrounds and everything, so we are really well protected, and thus, well, I would say Germans, at least, and probably most other Europeans, they're just not used, and then, okay, and that's what they know, and of course, when it comes to a situation like Cologne or elsewhere, they're often outnumbered.
That just gave me an idea. For example, one of the things that I'm observing, knowing a lot about Islamic countries, is that there's a strong movement of women in Islamic countries. As you said, you have artists producing art under the danger of losing their lives. And there's a strong movement in Iran, and there's a very strong movement in Saudi Arabia even. Women who try to throw off the veil. There's a strong movement in Saudi Arabia to change the laws because they're under the guardianship of males. And they all do it under the threat of at least going to prison, to have their families destroyed. So it's strange in some way to see that women here don't speak out, whereas those women who are really in danger, speaking out, are going for their freedoms. Are we too spoiled?
I just wanted to give a small example. Last year, Las Vilks was going to give a lecture at an art school in Sweden. It is possible, from time to time he's being invited out. But as you can imagine, there's an enormous security set up. And the students were mostly hostile towards him. But there was one student who was not. She came from Iran and said, I'm so happy he came today. I'm so happy that he says openly that you can make a cartoon of Muhammad and it's all right.
There's a quote from Haidev Mokisi. She's an Iranian living in Canada for the last 30 years, an academic. And she writes, I read her book about feminism and Islamic fundamentalism. And on the subject of women saying, oh, hijab is fine and this and that, she says, the pleasant sound of a distant drum. What she means, in countries where this is compulsory because it's Islamic country and the Sharia law, you can get killed. And she gives example of the girls killed in Iran because the headscarf was too far and so on and so forth. So for us, we are just fantasizing here. So part of the society lives in some fantasy of Oriental culture and pleasurable ways and so on. And then part of the society lives in self-denial, in some kind of a bubble that it's not about them, it doesn't touch them, it's something abstract.
So I thank the panelists for coming, for speaking, all of them. Helle, Agnieszka, Annabelle, Sylvia, and also Henrik Broder and Brigitta Biel. Thank you very, very much for coming, joining us and speaking out. And thank you all for coming. The reaction at the moment is silence or a very flat, let's say flat debate. So this is what we're aiming to change, and I hope this was a start. We're going to speak out very, very loudly over the next years, and I hope you join us. Thank you very much.